Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Annalisa and this video is going to be a topical one about how books help me feel my feelings, specifically erotica, because that's what I'm reading right now and what inspired me to make this video. So what am I talking about when I say feel my feelings? Basically, in psychology, in listening to therapists talk on social media, you will often hear that you need to feel your feelings. There are other things you can do with your feelings. You can suppress them. You can also act on them and let them control you. What I usually do with my feelings is I suppress them when they are negative. When they're positive, sometimes I suppress them as well. I'm learning not to do that. I'm learning to stim, because I'm autistic, when I am happy. Flapping my hands, pacing, things like that. But learning to feel my negative feelings has been a lot harder. I started hardcore repressing my feelings 3rd grade or so. I started to feel the rejection of my peers. I started to figure out that they thought I was weird, and I didn't like that feeling of rejection. And I either was born with or formed rejection sensitive dysphoria, which is a thing that is associated with several different neurodivergencies, including autism. And it's basically, you feel really, really bad when you feel like someone has rejected you even in the slightest way. And they don't even have to have actually rejected you, you just have to think that they have. So obviously I didn't want to feel that all the time, so I would suppress my feelings. And just try to ignore them, distract myself with usually reading or playing a video game, and I wouldn't allow myself to feel them. I would sort of act on them in that I would hide away. I would hide behind my mom, and I would not want to go places to try to prevent those feelings from happening again. But mostly I just distracted myself and did my best to stuff down those emotions and ignore them and tell myself that I wasn't having them and that it wasn't real. Which to an extent, telling yourself that your rejection sensitive dysphoria isn't real is helpful, because you are usually reacting to something that hasn't actually happened. So to an extent that can be helpful, but telling yourself that your own feelings aren't valid is not good. So in addition to it just not feeling good, people are also sort of socialized to not dwell on negative feelings and pretend that we're not having them in public. So like, don't be sad in public, don't tell someone how you're really doing when they ask how you are, things like that. Why is all that a bad thing? You'll hear this, I've heard this from a lot of online therapists. Basically, it is what you've heard a lot. When you store up, bottle up your feelings, eventually they will explode. Sometimes in bursts of anger, or in a burst of impulsivity, something that will hurt something or someone in our lives. It also tends to, we believe, lead to an increase of cortisol levels, which is the stress hormone, which is extremely detrimental long-term to people's health, physical health, not just mental health. So I want to feel my feelings, but it's hard and it hurts. So how does this apply to books? Basically, I have high empathy. A lot of autistic people will either have high empathy or low empathy. This does not relate to compassion. You can be highly empathetic and not be compassionate. You can be low empathy and be very compassionate. Compassionate being caring about other people and wanting to help them. Empathy being you take on the emotions of others. So like if someone's sad near you, you're sad, not just in a lesser way where you're sad they're sad, you actually feel sad because of the thing that is making them sad. like you feel their grief rather than being sorry that they feel grief. So high empathy, I can not only feel the feelings of real people, I can feel the feelings of fictional characters. Now, the emotion that I run from the most is rejection, because I am so sensitive to it and because I have a long history of trauma related to it, of just being repeatedly rejected by my peers because of my autism. Not because they knew I was autistic, but because they saw my autistic traits and knew I was weird. But I find it very cathartic to feel rejection through fictional characters. And when I feel someone else's rejection, I can feel it in my body, and I allow myself to feel it in my body, which means that not only do you know that you have a feeling and feel it in your brain, there are physical sensations. So for me, rejection makes a feeling of nausea that is stomach based rather than dizzy in the head based, and it comes in sort of a wave and feels really yucky but also very cathartic. And I think the reason it feels so cathartic is because I'm allowing myself to feel a negative emotion, and I usually don't. And when it's my own rejection, my RSD makes it so horrifying that I can't handle it, whereas when it's someone else, the RSD really doesn't come into play, interestingly enough. So I don't feel the need to either suppress it, or the other thing I do is I intellectualize them, which you would think would be healthy because you're kind of identifying what the feeling is and like exploring how you feel about it and what made you feel that way and how you can avoid it in the future. But unfortunately, that doesn't do as much to get rid of the stress hormones as feeling in your body does, apparently. I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist or a counselor. I just learn these things from the people who are those things, who spread their information on the internet. I will be linking below several like articles and videos and stuff like that for more information about feeling your feelings in your body if you're interested in like why that's a good thing or like how to do it. Now, why does erotica specifically something that really helps me with this area? There are a couple of reasons, I think. One is that erotica specifically is sort of designed to bring the reader into the character's emotions and sensations. Because if you're not really connected to those, you're not really going to get a lot out of erotica, generally. You're not going to get a lot of like that intellectualized stuff from erotica. You need to like really connect to the characters and feel what they're feeling to an extent to get something out of it. Another reason is because being centered a lot on sexual and usually at the same time romantic relationships, erotica will often have themes of rejection, where the characters will feel rejected from the person they're romantically and sexually interested in at some point in the book. And rejection is a sensation and an emotion that I have struggled so much to have, and so that feels so cathartic when I experience it through a fictional character, that erotica will usually allow me to feel that emotion. There are a lot of other books that will also allow me to feel that emotion. A lot of romances that aren't erotica will have that involved. Sometimes stories that have the romance as a subplot will involve it, and sometimes you'll come across rejection from a friend or a family member of the character, and those all also help me feel those things. But erotica is just something that, for one, I'm reading right now and is really helping me, and that is very like common to have those strong emotional experiences. So I don't think that empathizing with fictional characters is like the best way to feel your feelings, or like the final phase of it. I feel like it is one stepping stone on my journey of figuring out how to let myself experience these negative emotions and figuring out what they feel like in my body and what those sensations actually are, because from my usual intellectualizing standpoint, I have no idea what most of my emotions physically feel like. And so learning that through empathy, I think, is a good way to learn how to recognize those physical sensations, and they're not just indigestion. I'm reading an article from Psychology Today about feeling your feelings, and something that it pointed out that I haven't talked about is that there is a flip side and a reason why suppressing or intellectualizing your emotions leads to you not being fulfilled in life. It says, pain is the flip side of what we value. If you push down your loneliness by staying busy, you can't get in touch with your desire to love and be loved. This happens a lot in books too. If you've been hurt in the past and you try to suppress the feelings of pain and don't deal with them and don't deal with the resulting fear of future relationships, you will end up either purposefully or not purposefully sabotaging relationships to keep from being close enough to someone for them to hurt you. That's a very common theme in books. So I will link that article below. It tells you kind of how to feel your feelings and why you should. It doesn't talk about the cortisol issue, but I will find somebody that does and link that below as well. Basically, the place I'm at now mentally, I am willing to work on feeling my feelings, but I'm not willing to just drop all of my coping mechanisms and all the ways that I have suppressed and intellectualized my feelings so far. I don't want to open the floodgates. But I am willing to, one by one, explore negative feelings through fiction, because that is a much safer way to do it. Because ultimately, I can take a step back and say, that person was rejected, I was not, and I can let go of the feeling eventually. And also, the thing about fiction is usually the person in the romantic story feels like they've been rejected by the romantic partner, but the romantic partner actually does like them. And so I can feel the rejection with them while ultimately knowing that they will have a satisfying ending, and that the rejection is a false sense, which I can then, to an extent, extend to my own experience and say, maybe sometimes you think you're being rejected, but they actually aren't rejecting you, they're just shy, like you are. So yeah, that is how books and erotica specifically help me feel my feelings. This is probably coming out in May, filming it in the middle of April. So how is May going for you? Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to leave an emoji, how about something black? Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!